Janvi,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
And I can hear you, right? You'll have to
Yeah,
speak loud and clear. Right?
yeah, ma'am.
Sahil, you will conclude today. Sahil Sheikh, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon,
Good
ma'am.
afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Bala sir has joined. Not yet, now.
Ma'am?
Bala sir.
Yeah, he'll join. I said 10 minutes prior to 1.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. लवीना मैडम नहीं है?
Can't see her.
मैम हिमांशु सर ने बोला था रिमाइंडर डालने के लिए, मैंने रिमाइंडर डाल दिया है। लेट्स
ये
सी
डाला मैम?
हाँ अभी भी डाला। सर को मैंने बोला था 12:50 रिमाइंड कराऊंगी, तो सर ने बोला था श्योर, तो मैंने अभी जस्ट मैसेज कर दिया है। सो 1 बजे तक सर आ रहे हैं तो ठीक है, नहीं तो वी विल स्टार्ट आवर सेशन।
Okay.
आज इंट्रोडक्शन जानवी करेगी, साहिल कंक्लूजन करेगा, राइट?
Yes, ma'am.
ऑल द बेस्ट जानवी।
Thank you, ma'am.
नवीना खुद को म्यूट करके देख, हो रहा है? बाला सर इज आल्सो हियर। नवीना यू जस्ट अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ, सी हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है।
Hello, sir. Good afternoon, Bala sir. Can you hear us, sir?
Sir, unmute now. Sir, yes, unmute now.
Okay, I am able to hear you guys.
Okay.
And thanks, ma'am, for inviting me.
Sorry, ma'am, we can allow the participants in, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, so this particular webinar, is it live in YouTube as well? I see that on my left hand, that this it
Yes,
shows.
sir.
Oh my God.
Yes. Sony ma'am, let that be. Like it's only for this session, I guess.
Yes.
Do we want to continue? Yeah. Okay.
Hope everyone is doing fine during this COVID situation.
So we all are good and trying to keep our students occupied. So
Actually,
other than the routine lecture, this is one addition thing we thought of, experts from the industry could come here and share their experience. So,
absolutely.
and it's our pleasure, sir, to see. We are lucky to have you here.
Actually, I should.
From the corporate world and the entire experience, students would get to know one-on-one from you.
I should say pleasure is all mine because getting this opportunity with such a prestigious college is definitely a big deal for me. And so looking forward, to share my experience with the team, with the students, so that at least they can gain some knowledge. At least if they can gain 10 to 20% of the knowledge, from this presentation, that would be good for me as well as to everyone. Would the college be starting anywhere soon, anytime soon, say September or October? I've been reading news that schools
Not on
and
paper yet, sir. There are just speculations, so we're not very sure when. So until then, online
Yeah.
sessions are on. So, fine. Soni ma'am.
Yes, let's start with today's session.
Okay. So we are on day 5 of our 5-day lecture series here. And the past 4 days have been very much related to investment. But when we concluded yesterday's session, the day 4 session, we all came to know how important corporate communication is. So other than the knowledge you all have, you need to communicate that knowledge to others. And that's how you get into the corporate world. Communication is the skill. And that's the reason we have someone from the corporate world who would guide us on communication. Now I would like to ask Janvi to come and introduce our guest today. Janvi, can go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, one and all. I'm happy to welcome you all to our today's session, Corporate Communication Ladder to Success. Efficient communication is essential to being successful in life. The biggest source of interpersonal problem is poor communication. The key to the communication process is to be understood. Language is barrier for the communication. The aim of communication is transference and understanding of information between two or more people. It's great pleasure for me to introduce our today's speaker, Mr. Bala Rajan. He is Vice President Business Operation at QX Limited Company. He is having 16 years of experience in business process management and managing large-scale service delivery operation. He is expert in BFSI, banking, financial service, and insurance, and healthcare domain. He is also expert in Six Sigma tools. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Bala Rajan.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks, Rekha ma'am. Thanks, Janvi, for the introduction. And it's lovely to be part of this seminar or webinar, as we call. As in the current situation, we all know that things have changed. For the past 4 to 5 months, work from home or study from home is the new normal. So I will not, during my presentation, I have kept it very, very simple, my presentation. And I don't want to, load you with a lot of information. What I have tried to do is share relevant information, relevant experience, and hope that all the information which is there in the presentation could be useful for you guys in your day-to-day life. I do understand some of you may also be working in different, corporate environment, part-time, or, as a on a contract basis. This will definitely, communication plays a very, very important role in today's life. And during this pandemic situation, it is very, very important to communicate with your leaders, with your colleagues, in this case, with your teachers, with your professors, as well as with your classmates. So let me start with my presentation. I'll just share my screen. Hope I'm audible and everybody can see the screen.
Yes,
Rekha?
sir, very much. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So let's start with today's, what is going to be an agenda for next 1 hour or 1.5 hours during this presentation. One is, what is communication? we all know what communication means. I'm not going to use a lot of jargons or, a lot of Latin words. I'm going to keep it very, very simple. And I will give you a brief description what communication means in today's corporate world. Types of communication in corporate world. So here we will understand what are the different modes that are in a corporate world, or in my organization, what are the communication modes we use. Then the most important is how effectively you use your communication in an organization, and what are the tools and what are its impact in corporate world. Very, very important is do's and don'ts in a corporate world. So while communicating with your managers, with your supervisors, with your colleagues, or even in your day-to-day life, there are some do's and don'ts you need to follow while communicating with your colleagues. I will share some best practices in terms of how you can improve your communication, how you can improve your interaction, what are the different modes. Yeah, so I will share some best practices from the corporate world. What I do basically to improve my communication as well. Since I have been in this industry for the last 16 years, but every day is a new learning for me. So I would also share my experience. Most important right now that we all are, you guys are studying from home and we are working from home. I would like to give few work from home tips, which would really help in your day-to-day life, as well as how you can keep yourself motivated. Then I think this is something which everybody would like to know, is how to crack a corporate interview. Since all of you guys are, in couple of years you would graduate, or during that phase of time, during your second year or third year of studies, you will definitely want to work to support your family. So this will give you some idea as to what you need to be aware of during an interview, because we tend to do many things during an interview. So I will give you some tips on how to crack a corporate interview, because I have been conducting interviews for last, I would say 12 to 13 years. So I would share my experience with you guys, which may be helpful in your future interview sessions. And lastly, I have kept a question and answer session. If you guys have any questions, you can throw it at me, and I can provide you the answer to my best of my abilities. Yeah. So let's start with what is communication. So the thing which we are doing right now is a one form of communication. So webinar is one form of communication. What we are doing here is I am passing on information, knowledge to you guys. So that's what, in simple words, communication is nothing but sharing of information between two or more people. As I said, the information that is being sent has to be very, very clear, and the other person should be able to understand what I am trying to say or what we are trying to convey through that message. So it's a two-way requirement in terms of one person sends the message, the other person receives it, understands it, and provides his input. So it is very important that the communication should always be two ways. So if you look at this picture, what is happening here is there are three people who are trying to communicate, and one person is communicating, other two are listening, right? So it is very, very important to be a very good listener first. Listen to what the other person is saying and then answer. And one of the most important quality in a corporate world is being a good listener, because that is very, very important. If you're not a good listener, you will not be able to communicate well in an organization, as well as in your in your colleges or during your online classes, it's very important to listen to what the professor or teacher is saying. To understand what he is saying, you need to be a good listener. Then only you can ask questions, to your teachers or professors. So the takeaway from this slide is communication is one of the most important skills you require to be successful. If you don't have this communication, you might be best in studies, best in class, best in sports, or you can be best in anything. But if you don't have that skill to communicate, you will not be able to have a discussion, right? You will not be able to provide your inputs, your ideas to the other person. So it's very, very important that you communicate well. In your, with your friends, with your colleagues, with your family, in an organization or anywhere, communication plays an important role. Let's give you an example. In this period of time, we are working from home, right? You guys are studying from home. Now, if you don't communicate with your teachers or with your professors, if I don't communicate with my colleagues or with my team members, with my leaders, now I would not know what is happening, right? So it is very, very important to communicate with your people at this point of time. So it's very important to remember that communication is very, very important skills to be, required and to be successful in your career. So moving on to the next slide, this talks about the types of communication. So in a corporate world, there are two types of communication. One is internal. When I say internal, is within the organization. When I say external, it's with the clients, it's with the outsiders. So let's go through the internal channel first. So one of the most used and important mode of communication is emails, right? If I have to communicate with the clients, onshore clients, or if I have to communicate with a person who's sitting in, say, Ahmedabad or Delhi. So what I do, I send them emails with my requirement. So during emails, it's very, very important that we follow certain rules. One is, do you guys know about hierarchy, right? You have a leader, a manager, then you have an AVP, VP, then you have at the bottom, you have your associates and senior associates. Say, for example, I'm writing an email to 3 of my bosses, 3 of my VPs, who are my supervisors. And then I also need to copy certain individuals, like, say, a manager, right? So there are 3 columns, 3 tabs in an email. One is to, one is CC, and one is BCC. So for example, if I'm writing an email to my bosses, I need to, input their email IDs as per the hierarchy. So starting with the vice president, follow it up with associate vice president, then the managers. This is very, very important while you write emails, because 90% of the population do not know this, because when we send an email to the client, the first thing he notices is who all are marked in the email. Has the person who is sending the email following the hierarchy? So it's very, very important to follow that hierarchy in that too, when you are inputting the email IDs in the two. Next comes your CC. We have to follow the same kind of hierarchy in CC as well. CC means carbon copy. So these guys who all are in the CC column needs to, you are sending this email for their information. It's good to know that they are copied in those emails. Next comes BCC. BCC, the full form of BCC is blank carbon copy. Blank carbon copy is not to be used in an corporate world. It is not correct to use blank carbon copy, because it is like you are hiding something from the other person. So normally During an email conversation, this blank BCC is never used. So we have to keep that in mind, even during your emails which you send to your friends or to your teachers, professors. Do not use BCC. It's not the correct way of writing an email. Now, your email should always have a subject. Very, very important. Next, it should always have a salutation. Hi, hello, dear sir, dear madam. And you have to end your email with thanks and regards. So these are some of the key important tools you have to remember while sending an email. Next is the intranets. I believe even I think the colleges are using intranets. So this is basically to send in those information internally to your, for example, in our organization, we have an intranet where we post, say, if there is any information related to the company, any information related to, say, events that is happening in the company. So that intranet is used. Meetings. Now, when you're going for a meeting, one, you need to have an agenda. Like we are having during this session, we are having an agenda. This, in the similar way, you need to have an agenda for the meeting. Next is you need to send an invite, right? You have to send an invite to people whom you want in a meeting. You cannot just pick up the phone and say, you know what, let's have a meeting right now. Or you cannot just message a person and say, we are having a meeting at 12 o'clock, please attend it. That is not the correct way. If you are having a meeting at, say, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, a meeting invite has to be sent previous day or start of the day. If your day starts at 9 o'clock, you need to send that invite by 9 o'clock with the agenda in that email saying that we are going to have a meeting at 1 o'clock. This is the agenda of the meeting, so that the other person is able to prepare for that meeting, right? So very important thing to be, to remember is you need to send an invite, you need to have an agenda. And now during, when we were working from office, you follow a dress code, right, for the meeting. So during work from home as well, there has to be a dress code, right? So you need to mention all these things in that agenda, in your email or in your invite, right? Next comes the newsletter. Newsletter is nothing but, on a monthly basis, whatever activities that has happened in the organization, all those information is passed on to all employees in that organization. So we have, for example, in QX, we have something called as a monthly newsletter called QX letter. So it is nothing but it has a message from your, from the CEO. It has a message from all the BU heads. It has what all events that has happened in that particular month. So it gives a very brief overview of all what has happened in that month in that organization. So newsletter is very, very important in an organization to understand, so that everybody knows what is happening in that organization. Then you have phone calls. Yes, say for example, you communicate on a daily basis with your friends, with your classmates. I communicate with my team members, with my leaders. I call them up, ask them how they are doing, what is happening. And lastly is training. So it's very important that on a monthly basis, we add value to our people through different kind of training. So in a corporate world, in our organization, what we have is we have something called as a learning and development department, right? So what we do is we normally nominate people into those learning and development department, so that they can improve themselves, be it in communication, be it email writing skills, be it phone etiquettes. So we have a calendar, and based on the requirements, we send people. To give you an example, what college has done for last 5 days in terms of giving you training, giving you, knowledge of different investment background. And today we are having, a session on corporate communication. This is nothing but training. So what happens in a corporate world is we have a monthly calendar, specifically aligned to different trainings, which is also a very, very important tool. Or I would say we make sure that every person or every associate who's part of QX undergoes these trainings. So it's very, very important. Coming to the external, communication is how we communicate with our clients, how we communicate with our vendors. So one of the most important tool is social media. You all must have heard about LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is one of the professional tool which corporate use to share the information. Share information about company, what is happening in company, the events in company. So this way, what the organization does is he shows what is happening in the company to the outside world. So social media platform plays a very, very important role here as well. Now, what we need to be very, very careful of is we need to ensure we use the social media very, very carefully, because whatever you write in those social media, right, cannot be taken back, right? Even if you delete it, say after an hour, after 2 hours, it spreads, right? Whatever you write in the social media, it spreads. So we need to be very, very careful how we communicate using social media. As I mentioned, in all these forms of communication, one of the takeaways is we need to be clear and transparent in our communication. When I say transparent means you need to be very, very clear and articulate what you are writing, what you want to convey to the other person. So you need to be very, very clear and transparent in your communication. I hope everybody is able to hear me and see the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So moving on to the next slide, which talks about effective communication in our workplace, right? Workplace, which is very, very integral element of a business success. So as I mentioned at the start of my presentation, communication is the key in a workplace, in a business. So if you see this circle, I have mentioned few, I would say few information, few highlights from our workplace, which encourages us or which enables us to be a better communicator. So first part is, as we have already gone through it, it's being very clear and concise. Now, writing during an email, when we are sending an email, we need to be very, very clear and concise. We cannot write stories, right? Because nobody at this point of time in corporate world or in an organization, or even, for example, if you guys get an email from your friend or from your professors or from anyone, if it is too long, you tend to miss out, or you tend to say that this email is too long, I don't want to go through everything. You just read what is at the top, you just read what is at the bottom, and you leave out the middle. So it's very, very important that while writing an email, you have to be very, very clear and concise in your communication. One. Secondly, even while you are talking over the phone, or even while you are doing a video call, you have to be clear in your communication. You have to be very, very concise. You need to be point to point. What message you want to convey, you need to be very, very specific, if I have to put it in that words. Second is practice empathy. At this point of time, during work from home, during this pandemic situation, one thing we need to follow is empathy. Because what we have realized as an organization is, when we started doing this work from home, I'll give you an example. So what happened was, we were trying to set we were trying to give away all the systems, broadband connections, setting up their systems at your home. And what was happening was people were just coming back to us or coming back to the IT team saying that my internet is not working, my keyboard is not working, I'm not able to. Hello.
Rajan Babu, RAJAN.
No, the screen is changing. Also.
Hello.
Yes, sir, you can
Yes,
continue.
sir. Sorry.
So as I said, there were a lot of calls coming in, from the team to the IT department saying that my internet is not working, my systems is not working, I cannot, my production is getting hampered. Why can't you guys fix it immediately? Now we need to understand that in our organization, there are close to 1,500 people who are currently working from home. And we have, the IT department has close to 20 people. So we need to understand that, that they are also occupied and helping out different people with their systems. So during this pandemic, it's very, very important to practice empathy. That is to understand the problem of other person and listen to him and wait, right? So it's very, even for example, in your online studies as well, there might be instances where your internet is not working, where you're, where you're not able to hear the other person talking. So you need to relax and do not just pick up the phone and call up your internet service provider and blast him. That's not the way. So you need to relax. You need to understand the situation and then talk to him very, very politely and, get those things resolved. So that's very, very important at this point of time to practice empathy and also ensure that you don't get angry on that person, because everybody is doing their best to ensure the business online classes run smoothly. Next is you're asserting yourself. So in an organization, when I say assert yourself, it's not like you get into fight during a feedback session. It's not like that. During a meeting, you don't have to get into a fight to prove your point. So what I mean from asserting yourself is be confident, right? And wait for your chance to speak. And whatever you are talking, you need to ensure you're clear in your communication, right? So one example is group discussion, right? We all of us have attended a group discussion. The mindset we have during a group discussion is if we shout on top of our voice, right? That means we are doing a good job, which is actually a very, very wrong thought process or wrong notion, from our understanding. This is being assertive is one of the skills you need to use in a group discussion, right? So when I say being assertive is you make up your points, what do you want to talk about, and talk confidently, right? When you get a chance, wait for your chance and talk confidently. Next is be calm and consistent in your communication during your feedback session, during your meetings. You need to be calm and consistent in your messaging. When I say consistent is, say for example, I write a message, okay, the meeting will have in today's meeting, we will be going through corporate communication. After half an hour, I'm sending another message saying that in this meeting, we would also have discussion on, say, investment banking. Third message, I say, no, we will not be having a discussion on investment banking. So you are understanding where I'm coming from. So my messaging is very inconsistent. So what I need to do is I need to, whenever I'm trying to convey my message, whenever I'm trying to, have a discussion, I need to be consistent. So if I'm talking about corporate communication, I need to talk about corporate communication, nothing else. And be calm. I think this is one of the most important part, because we always tend to, during a discussion, this happens when we have a one-on-ones with our leaders, with my leaders, they always want to jump into conclusion and try to prove their point, which should not be the case, right? You need to understand, you need to be really calm, listening to what other person is saying, then convey your thought process. Use and read body language. Now, body language, if this particular session was, if I were to take this session in your college, I would be able to read your body language, because I can see you, I can see what you're doing at this point of time. But during work from home, I'm not able to see you because this is a virtual environment. You guys might have, you have already switched off your cameras, muted yourself. You might be doing, fidgeting with your mobile phones. So that is kind of a negative body language during a conversation, right? So it's very, very important that while having a feedback session, while in a meeting, while talking to your supervisors or while talking to your teachers, you need to have a very positive body language. You need to show that you are interested in that conversation. So it's very, very important. Your body language plays a very, very important role in corporate communications. Now, what is the advantage? So if we are following this cycle, what is the advantage we would have, right? It enhances relationship within the company. So if I'm very clear in my communication, in my feedback with my team members, what will happen? The team members will understand, okay, my manager or my leader is giving me timely feedback, is having a very, very clear communication with me, right? My relationship with that person, it creates a very positive vibe in the organization. Also, he would have a positive mindset working while working as well. Most important is with clients. Now, without clients, there is no organization. So if I have to talk about QX, we get work from UK clients, right? So it's very important that we have a daily meeting, daily video calls with our clients, and we have to practice all these 5 things during our conversation. Because if the clients find us negative, right, they will pull out the process, right? If they find that our communication is very rude, they will escalate, right? So if we follow these practices, it will really enhance our relationship, not only with our team members, but also with our clients. Second is increase employee engagement. Now, take an example. You don't communicate with your classmates, or I don't communicate with my team members or with my leaders, right? And because of that, what happens is there is very less engagement between the two parties, between me and the team members, between you and your classmates, between you and your team teachers. There is very, very less engagement, right? Now, we also have some in your colleges, you have festivals. Similarly, in our organization, in corporate world, we have these called as Fun Fridays, right? Or what we do in those Fun Fridays is we have these events, different games or events during that particular session, during that particular day, so that it creates a positive environment and it refreshes ourselves. Apart from, we have been working from Monday to Thursday, it acts as I would say, a stress buster of having these events on a Friday. Now, if you don't have a good rapport, or you have not built a strong relationship with your team or with your colleagues, what will happen is, even if you're doing these kind of engagements, nobody will participate, right? Because you have never communicated with them. You have not had feedback sessions with them. They don't know what is happening. In some instances, if you're not communicating, that means you're not even sending them emails informing them there is an event on Friday, right? So it's very important that you communicate which will increase employee engagement. Employees will be encouraged to, to participate in your events. Also, they would have a positive mindset towards work as well. Again, as I mentioned, in an organization, we work as a team, and if we communicate well, what happens is it increases the overall effectiveness of the team. Now, what is the takeaway from the slide? There are different types of communication you can learn, practice to help you become an effective communicator. Now, from these 5, circles, you can take any one of them and practice it in your daily life. And I can rest assure you that, it will really help you in your communication. It will really help you in your day-to-day life. Moving on to the next slide, again, we talk about effective communication in workplace. Now, this is between managers and team members. So during this work from home, in our organization, what are the things a manager has to, be aware of, and what are the things a team member has to be aware of? Communicate frequently. As I have been in the last, I think 20-25 minutes, I have been talking about this many times. During this work from home environment, communication is very, very important, because if you don't communicate, you will feel isolated. Provide safe channels of giving feedback. One is set up a meeting, have those, we have a lot of tools by which you can have those feedback session. You can make that office environment in your feedback session. Like, for example, you have Zoom, you have Skype, you have WhatsApp calls, many things, right? But in a corporate world, we normally use Skype and Zoom for our meetings. We also have something called as Microsoft Teams, which is a really good tool to have those feedback sessions. So it's very important that during your feedback session, you can see your team members or see your leaders. That's very, very important. So if you're planning to have a one-to-one with your professors or anyone, with your colleagues, it's better to have those face-to-face interaction. So in our organization, in a corporate world, during this situation, managers use these tools very, very effectively. Help employees work at home effectively. As I said, practicing empathy will really help employees. So managers have to be very, very careful while they're discussing with their team members. They cannot shout. So if a person is not able to achieve his productivity, they cannot shout, right? It's a very, very bad habit of managers shouting at a colleague. So they need to understand, they need to use those circle, right, with their employees, so that working from home becomes effective and efficient. Address concerns about job security. So you must have read in a lot of newspapers or online, you must have seen the news. But there is a lot of job security in the market. People have been laid off because of this COVID situation. What has happened is if I have to talk about QX, we depend on onshore, right? We depend on UK clients. If they have work, we have work. If they don't have work, we don't have work. So in this current situation, what has happened is there are a lot of businesses in UK, which have shut down, which has really in UK, US, Canada, North America, Australia, a lot of businesses have shut down. So that effect has been seen in India as well, because our main focus of one of the channels of getting jobs is through outsourcing business. So that has affected a lot. But right, as a leaders, as a managers, it's very important that we let our team members know that your job is secure. You don't have to worry about it. You just have to concentrate on your work. You need to give them that, at least you need to show the concern, right, with your team members, saying that you do not have to worry about your job. It is secured in QX. We have not laid off anyone during this pandemic situation, right? And this is one of the key highlights of QX in this during this last, I would say, it's been like we started work from home on March 18th, and it's been close to 5 months, 5.5 months. So we have not laid off anyone. So that speaks a lot of volume. So that's where managers plays a very key role in addressing that issue with their team members and ensuring that, letting them know that their job is secure. And lastly is provide a plan for the future. So everybody in a corporate world, wants to grow. A team member wants to become a team leader wants to become a manager. So as leaders, as managers, it's very important to show them a roadmap, right? It's again a kind of communication. You are setting up some expectations, right? You are giving them some goals, which is very, very important in an organization. So what are the, what team members need to do? During communicate frequently, share correct feedback. So if they have received any, escalation from the client, communicate with their managers, share any requirements during work from home, share concerns, and lastly, ask for clarity. So if you have not understood anything, please ask. Do not assume, right? That is very, very important. So what is the takeaway from this slide? The takeaway from this slide is, remember, listen to understand, do not listen to respond. So this is, I think this is one habit we all have. We want to listen to the question and we want to answer it quickly and get done with it. That should not be the case. We need to first listen and understand what the message is all about. Okay, then provide our feedback. Moving on to the next slide. I just want to, all of you guys to see this video. Just give me a moment. I think it's loading.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät, Überlebensradar.
Okay, I will start it again. So you guys can view it, right? Or you guys can hear it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät, Überlebensradar.
We are able to hear this. We are not able to see this. Only the link is available on the slide.
Is it? Yeah.
So we can hear this, but the video is not visible. Only link is available in the slide.
Oh, video is not visible?
No, sir.
Oh, okay. I think it's more to do with video. I'm not sure why.
No, sir, you got to share the screen again.
Okay, share the screen. Just give me a moment. Huh? Should I stop sharing? Okay. Let's do this. Can you see this?
Yes.
Can you see the video?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'll just play it again.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät, Überlebensradar.
Mayday, mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät
Just
des
give me a moment.
Küstenwächters. Das Gerät und das Überleben.
I hope you guys were able to see that video, right? So if you really think about it, there are a lot of barriers when we communicate with others, and there are a lot of barriers. So in that video, what we saw was there was 2 German Coast Guards, okay, and one of them was going on a break. And he was telling his subordinate that you just have to, do this, and you would be okay. And there was a problem, and there were some messages being sent in English saying that it was Mayday and they were sinking. Someone was sinking in the ocean or in the sea, on the sea. But because this particular Coast Guard was not good with his English, he was not able to understand what the other person was saying. And what did he reply? He replied that, "What are you thinking?" Right? So he has not listened to the message what was being conveyed to him. So there are going to be barriers, in your communication. So if you look at the slide, what are the barriers? Now, starting off with barriers involving words. What we saw in the video was exactly that, language. No, we don't understand language, right? If, for example, if we talk about India, right? So me being a South Indian, right? I understand Tamil very well, but I've been living in Mumbai for close to more than 25 years, but still I have some language barrier with say a Marathi, or if I'm traveling to say Orissa or West Bengal, I might be having problem with that particular language. So language is one of the barriers in effective communication. Disorganized message. You must have seen in the video that they were saying we are sinking, and this guy is saying we are thinking. What are you thinking? Right? Another example is in today's world, it's WhatsApp world, right? So we always use short forms, right? Say, for example, talk to you later. It is, if I'm correct, it is TTL. So if you message this to someone else who doesn't understand those short forms, for them, they will not understand the message at all, right? So you need to be clear in what message you want to convey. In corporate world, language plays a very, very important role, because we talk to our UK clients on a daily basis, and they have a very, very thick accent, and we Indians, some of us do not understand that accent. So it's very important to listen to them, and that's where training plays a very, very important role. So as I mentioned in my earlier slides, we have something called as learning and development, which plays a very, very important role in training. In these accent training, we have something called as accent training. So that gives, helps the team members to understand that language, very, very clearly. Thirdly is ambiguity and overuse of abstraction. Ambiguity is nothing but we beat around the bush. Say, for example, if I have to say you're not doing a good job, right? Managers tend to say, oh, this month you did well, this month you did not do well, this month your performance was consistent. Don't do that. You say you are not performing well. So be direct, don't beat around the bush. Next is overuse of abstraction. We normally tend to, the meaning of this is, we normally during a conversation, we give them generic example. We need to be very specific during our feedback session. We need to give them very specific example, why they are doing it wrong, what have they been doing correctly, right? And last is information overload. As I said, when you're writing an email, you need to be very clear and concise, or even while talking, while having a call, you need to, your whatever information you need to pass on, you need to be very, very clear. What happens is we send long emails, which nobody reads, right? We send, say, a 10-page or PDF, which nobody reads. So you need to, to have an effective communication, you need to be very concise in messaging. Next is, another barrier is people's background, right? The attitude difference, demographic. As I said, a person coming from different country or different state will have a different kind of mindset. Lack of common experience and perspective. Common experience and perspective is, say, for example, I have a background of BFSIs, right? And I try to get into IT. I will not have that experience, right? And I will not have that perspective as well, what IT person's mindset is, right? So it's very important to understand while communicating what is the experience two people share, and whatever discussion you guys are having or whatever feedback sessions you guys are having, you need to ensure that it is effective, and both of you guys need to be on the common ground. And last is jumping into conclusion. We always do this. We always do this. If you're watching, if you're talking to someone about any sports or any debate, we always jump into conclusion, say, okay, this is what it is. You know, this is, I'm correct. This is what I have heard. This is what it is. So we need to avoid doing that. Physical barriers are something like, it's very, very, both the barriers are common. If you see barriers involving people background and physical barriers are common. So it's very important to understand these barriers and communicate effectively. Moving on to the next slide. Pronunciation. So while communicating, it's very important to pronounce those words correctly, because when we have that conversation or when we have those meetings, we hear the words, right? Once we hear those words, the sound of the words is very, very important, so that the other person who's listening understands. Next is your vocabulary. It's very, very important to use the correct form of words during your conversation, because when we are talking to clients, be it UK, US or Australian, it's very important that we have a good vocabulary. Let's take an example. We have a meeting tomorrow and I have to be in same blue color or color blue formal. So this is not the correct way to form a sentence. The right way is, we have organized a gathering for all of us tomorrow with blue formals as a dress code. As I mentioned, you need to be clear. You need to use the right words. You need to use, your sentence has to be articulate. I'm not sure why is this. Tips is, we all encounter that we make mistakes in our life, right? So while talking, even during this presentation, I would have made mistakes. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. You just have to, realize, if you realize your mistake, just apologize and ensure that you don't commit or you don't repeat the same mistakes again and again. We all make mistakes. That's perfectly fine, right? And most important part is, when the other person is making mistake, you don't laugh on it, right? That's very, very important. That's very rude. So everybody makes mistakes. It's how we overcome those mistakes is important. So let's talk about the do's and don'ts in a corporate communication. I think I have spoken about this many times, that being clear and direct in your messages is very, very important. Avoid acronyms. Acronyms is nothing but what we use. As I said, TTL, TC, take care, right? We have to avoid this in our emails. Don't beat around the bush, be specific. Be paraphrase. When in doubt, talk it out, ask. right? Say, for example, you must have noticed a couple of times I have asked whether you guys are able to listen, okay, whether you guys are able to see the video, right? And I did not assume that you guys are able to listen here and you guys are able to see that video. So you need to ask questions. If you see that other person is not able to understand, ask him, should I repeat it, right? It's very important. Be very respectful in your email conversation, in your, any kind of communication. You need to be respectful towards others. This is very, very important in an organization. In QX, we have something called as values, and we call it as precise. The R stands for respect. We have had people, who are disrespectful, they have been terminated from the organization. So it's very important to be respectful in an organization. And do a tailored conversation to the audience. So when you are communicating with your boss, say for example, if you're working, when you're communicating with your supervisors, the communication should be different. When you're working, when you're talking to your team members, the tone, the body language should be different. So when you're talking to your classmates, your body language is different. When you're communicating with your professors, the body language, the use of words should be different. Most important is face-to-face communication. Whenever you have any difficult information or very information that needs to be shared, and you feel that, writing an email will not serve the purpose, use the face-to-face conversation. You have a lot of tools like Skype, Zoom, WhatsApp calling. Please use that and have a direct conversation. So that's what we encourage in our organization, to have those face-to-face conversation, so that you can understand the body language of the other person. You can understand what challenges he's facing. So it's very important to have a face-to-face conversation. As I said at the start, a good listener makes a better communicator. It's very, very important to listen. Do not jump into conclusion. Listen to what the other person is saying. Some of the don'ts, you should avoid it, or you should not practice these, communication requirements. You should not practice this. Don't give more attention to cell phones than people. Say, for example, while in a meeting or while during this presentation, I completely understand that sometimes it tends to get a bit boring. So what we do is we go into that mode of checking our message, checking WhatsApp messages, checking Facebook, checking our Instagram. This is not correct, because what happens is you might miss out on something important. So this is one of the don'ts in an organization. During our meeting or or our feedback sessions, we always ask our employees to turn off their mobile phones. Don't overuse abbreviation. I think we have spoken about it a lot. Say, for example, advertising, we use ADVT. So usage of those examples once or twice is okay, but not frequently. Do not monopolize the conversation. When I say monopolize the conversation, it's a two-way communication, right? Everything is two ways, right? So if I'm talking and if I don't let the other person talk, that communication will not be effective, right? Because it's very important to understand what the other person is thinking. Don't react or get upset. Normally what happens in an organization is, during our team meetings, is if my idea is not taken, I'm upset, I get angry, and I don't I just want to move out of that room, right? I don't when my idea is not taken, what I do is I take a back step. I don't listen to I'm not thinking about that meeting at all, right? I'm physically there but mentally somewhere else. Don't do that. It's okay if your idea is not taken. It's okay if during a difficult discussion people tend to get angry, right? You need to understand and you need to ensure that you have that conversation in a right manner so that you don't get upset or the other person doesn't get upset. And this happens mainly when we are having a difficult discussion, when you are having an appraisal discussion, an increment discussion. So you need to ensure that the response you are giving, it's not emotional, it's more of practical. Don't interrupt, right? During a conversation, when a person is talking, do not interrupt him. Let him finish and then you ask your questions. As you have seen in my agenda, I have kept the question and answer session at the end. So it's very important to let the other person talk, listen to his conversation, and then you ask your questions. One of the takeaways is avoid grapevine. Grapevine is nothing but gossip, right? And everybody knows in today's world, fake news travels faster than the real news. So it's very important that you don't become the source of the gossip. In an organization, what happens is we tend to talk a lot about person behind a back, right? And sometimes that person comes to know. And if he comes to know that you were the source of the gossip, it becomes a very difficult situation, right? So please ensure that you avoid grapevine and you don't become a source of gossip. As I mentioned before, sharing some best practices. Also, I would like to give my some of my experience, and I would like to share my experience with you guys. One of the important tool to improve your communication skills is reading newspaper, right? We tend to think, okay, this is very childish or this is very weird, but trust me guys, this really helps. So whenever I go for a client meeting or whenever I go for an interview, this is what I do before an interview. I read a newspaper a lot as well as loud, so that I understand myself, I hear myself and tend to correct myself wherever I'm going wrong. So it's very, very important. So if you guys can, at least once a day in the morning or in the evening, read those newspaper loudly and hear yourself, right? That's very important. Second is communicate in English, right? So in our organization, or I think this particular practice, every organization has taken is during your internal meetings, during your feedback sessions, we have to speak in English, right? Otherwise there is a penalty, right? So it's very important to communicate in English so that you can improve that language. You can, get a hold in that language. I think in today's generation, we use these a lot. ASAP, meet me ASAP, meeting is scheduled, come ASAP. We cannot use these abbreviations or acronyms during a conversation. We need to avoid this. As I mentioned, improve your vocabulary, improve the pronunciation. There might be some difficult words, what I tend to do is I try to find similar words, okay, the synonyms of those difficult words, and use those words in my day-to-day conversation, because it's very important to pronounce those words, work on your pronunciation when you're, on a day, because on a day-to-day basis, I connect with my clients in UK. So it's very important that I pronounce those words correctly. So make use of those, of the Google, and try to find out if there are any difficult words which you cannot pronounce, try to find out a similar words so that you can, use it better. Most important thing is you need to think in English. What we tend to do is, this happens with everyone. what we tend to do it, we tend to think in Hindi and we literally translate that sentence into English. So what happens here is your sentence, there are a lot of grammatical mistakes in those sentences because we are thinking in Hindi, right? So it's very important to think in English so that while you are writing, the idea is in English. So it becomes very easy to type those sentences in English. And lastly is during this time, make use of those online learning courses. Some of them are LinkedIn. LinkedIn has some fantastic courses which would really help you guys in terms of communication, in terms of accountancy, in terms of effective leadership. There are many courses in LinkedIn Learning, so you guys can check that out. There is one more website, if you guys want to make a note of it, you can make a note of it. It is Udemy. Udemy. The spelling is Udemy. It is a very good online learning courses. It is free. There are some good courses. You guys should try that out because it really helps in in developing those skills. Moving on to the next slide. These are some work from home tips which we have given to our team members. And probably you can take some of the tips from this slide and use it in your day-to-day life. One is definitely prepare a schedule, right? Second is set your time. Third, talk to your friends. This is very important. We tend to work for 9 hours, 10 hours. We don't talk to our friends. We get isolated. So it's very important to talk to your friends. Then take regular break and do exercise. Very important time, guys, because nowadays we don't go out, right? We tend to sit at home and do nothing. So it's very important that at least we do some kind of exercise. Eat healthy and stay hydrated. Then have some me time, give some time to yourself and log off completely. So once you log off, so for example, if you take my example, I start my day at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And end my day at 10 in the night. So after 10 o'clock, I completely log off. I don't take any calls or I don't reply to any emails. So that's very important. Now coming to the latter part, how to crack a corporate interview, because I think this will be very important, as well as you guys can take some tips from this slide. When you are going for an interview, once you graduate, you can keep these things in mind. Create a good resume, because that is what I being from an organization and I've been part of the interviewing panel for close to 12-13 years. The first thing we see is your resume, right? So you need to have good objective, right? What is your objective in life? That has to be mentioned there. Your achievements, right? So for example, you are a fresh graduate, right? You don't have any work experience, but you must have achieved something during your college life. Mention those things in your resume. Next is projects. I do understand in colleges you have many projects to do, in that 1 year of your courses. Mention about that project, because what this helps is, from an interviewer point of view, I can gauge whether you are a team player or not, right? So it's very important to list down 3 things. These 3 things, apart from your educational background, your family background, where you stay, these 3 things are very important to build a good resume. Next is dress code. While going for an interview, it's strictly formals. I'm talking about when you are going to an interview, not, I will also let you guys know what needs to be done during the work from home scenario. But if you're going for an interview, strictly formals, avoid casuals, no sports shoes, no floaters, because I have seen many guys, wearing sports shoes, wearing floaters and coming for an interview. a big no. An interviewer tends to reject him right away, right? So it's very important you follow the dress code. And during the work from home scenario, we take interviews through Zoom or Skype. So it's very important you dress formally, right? So that's these two are one of the key requirements when you go for a corporate interview. Listen, pause, and answer. What we tend to do is the moment the interviewer is asking you questions, you say, I know this, I know the answer, and you just give away the answer. No, first listen to what the question is. Pause for a moment, think about the answer, and then answer it. Take at least 3 to 4 second pause. This question is universal, right? This is the first question you get when you are giving an interview. So how you need to tackle this question is, first you introduce yourself, give your education background, talk about your strengths and weaknesses, then talk about your passion. Do not, one thing guys, keep that in mind, do not read your resume, right? Because interviewer already has that resume in his hands. He's able to read it. You have to tell him something which is not there in your resume. So it's very important. So make use of these 3-4 pointers and work on it. As I said, before going into an interview, look into a mirror and talk to yourself, give out the answers, and you will definitely understand where you're going wrong and you can correct it. Very important is read the job description and do your homework on the company you're applying for. Because what normally happens is, say there is a job description which says BCom graduates required for a particular company, right? What we tend to do is we just pack our things, take our resume and walk up to the company. Don't do that. Go to the company's website, understand what the company does, understand what the job description is, so that you got prepared going for the interview. Because what generally happens is there is an IT guy, okay, who comes for an interview for an accountant job, right? Because he has not read the job description, he has just read freshers required and he has walked up to the interview. So don't do that mistake. It is not correct. Read the job description, do your homework on the company, and then go for interview. Very, very important, guys. Never provide wrong information on your resume. Be it related to your experience, be it related to your educational background, particularly in terms of marks. Do not provide any wrong information on your resume, because an interviewer can easily catch it. So avoid these information in your resume. And lastly, clarify if I have not understood the question. Don't make an assumption, right? If you have not understood, ask whether I have understood the question correctly, whether this is what you're looking out for. Ask these kind of questions. Do not assume. That's the end of this session of my presentation. And we can go to question and answer session. Before that, I would say thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Rekha ma'am, for giving QX the opportunity to come and showcase my presentation. And lastly, please wear your mask while going outside, wash your hands frequently, and keep the social distancing. So stay safe, stay home, and stay in touch. Thank you, guys. Thanks for your time. And I can now take any questions if you have any. I hope at least you guys were able to take few pointers from my presentation, and you can work on it. It will definitely help you guys.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
I have a question that how can someone talk about or in a difficult situation, avoiding the conflict?
Okay. So let me give you an example. In a difficult situation, say for example, I am talking to my team member whom I want to tell him that there is, we have companies laying off, and from tomorrow, you don't have to come to work. So this is a difficult situation, right? So the way you have to handle it is, first understand, let him know where the company is at this point of time, why that decision is being taken. Okay, say for example, I will let that person know that currently the situation of the company, because we have got a lot of ramp downs, plus a lot of our onshore clients have shut down their business. Now what has happened is that has got an effect on our company, right? So in order to ensure that company is able to manage his cash flow, it is important that we let go of certain individuals, because we don't have that much work with us. So it's very important to give them a clear information why this particular decision has been taken. Because what happens, what we tend to do is we just get into a meeting and say, you're fired. That is not the case. That should not be the case. If you want to have a difficult conversation, you need to make the other person understand why we are doing this, right? Provide him some insight of the company, of your situation, right? And also later in your discussion, you can also mention, so if I have taken this example of laying off, you can also mention 3 months down the line, 4 months down the line, once the situation gets better, you can definitely come back. You also need to give him some, I would say, solution, or so that he understands that situation. It's very important to make that person understand why this decision is being taken. So once you're able to make him understand, once you're able to provide him with an insight why this is happening, your difficult conversation will become very easy. I hope I have answered your question, Sal.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So there is one more question in the chat box, which says that is online course certificates useful in resume creation?
Yes, yes. As I mentioned about 2 websites, one is LinkedIn Learning, right? One is Udemy, and third is Google. Google also has some free online courses. Once you clear those courses, you can definitely mention it on your resume. It adds value, right? And when you go for an interview and you have mentioned that course, it adds value to your resume as well as, but you need to make sure you have gone through the entire course. You have taken it diligently. It should not be like just for the sake of going through that online course, you are doing it, right? You have to understand what the course is. You have to take some insight from the course and then mention it in your resume. It is absolutely fine. Online courses are valid. Online courses can be mentioned on your resume. During this work from home, I have done many LinkedIn courses, which I have mentioned in my LinkedIn as well as in my resume. So that's absolutely fine.
Sonima?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Mala sir, for joining us and sharing your practical knowledge with our students. And as today was our last session, so we are concluding this particular 5 days series, Investment Beyond the Boundaries, organized by BWOC and BAF department. So on behalf of both the department, I'm very thankful to all the participants for showing your interest and remain present in all the session till the end of the day. So thank you so much. Hopefully we also come up with new sessions with a new webinars, and you guys will join us same as you have given participation in this particular webinar. So thank you so much. We will see you in next sessions also.
Thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity, giving QX the opportunity. I look forward for many more sessions like this, and also look forward for hiring great talents from this college.
Thank you so much. Sir, you
Thank
can leave the meeting now if you want
Thank
to.
you. Thanks.
And all the participants,
Thank you, sir.
please see the chat box. We have already posted the chat box में email, that is, sorry, link for the day. That is your feedback come quiz. And certificates we are going to provide within 1 week, because it will take some processing time for us also. So within 1 week, we are going to forward you the certificate on your respected email address, which you have mentioned in the forms. And also we will update you on the WhatsApp once we are done with our feedback form. Ma'am, anything else we need to share with these students?
Now the feedback form, the certificates might take a week's time. So please be patient and we would be updating you on the WhatsApp group. So don't leave your WhatsApp group until you receive your certificates. That's all. Thank you. Janvi, please resend the feedback form in the chat group.
Hopefully all the participants have enjoyed. The feedback link is open for next 15 minutes. Huh?
Yeah, you have a common certificate for all the 5 sessions together. So just one certificate for all the sessions. Ruchi, I hope I cleared it.
Participants who have filled the feedback form, they can leave the meeting. Those who are finding any difficulty or any problem, please remain over here and inform us.
I think we can end this meeting now, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. Sahil?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. End the meet.